Buju, Tibishko Gijigat Nadishnakaz, Makwado Dem, Minegoziibe Anishinabe, Dunji. The drum will start the ceremony this morning. The drum carrier is Ronan Chartrand. Ronan is 14 years old. He is a practitioner of Anishinaabe, Manitoba Matazuin, and is a proud band member and probably a future leader of the Minegoziibe Anishinaabe Pine Creek First Nation. So I'll call at this time Ronan to start us off with a drum song.
Matutape kwa yumache noena Utatamako ena yumache hewe ho Kiksena pe wesani Hey 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 Matutape kwa yumache noena Utatamako ena yumache hewe ho Kiksena pe wesani Hey 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 Matutape kwa yumache noena Utatamako ena Hey ho Kiksena pe wesani Hey 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 hey
Miigwech Ronan Chartrand, once again a youth from Minegoziibe Anishinaabe, for opening us up with that drum song. And in addition to the drum song, I want to acknowledge Premier Kinew for lifting the pipe for us all this morning. In 1874, the Agreement of Treaty 4 committed several First Nations and the Crown to a special relationship of respect. Today, chiefs and councillors and representatives of the Crown have convened the ceremony in the Manitoba Room, a room designated for special functions within the Manitoba Legislative Building here on Treaty 1 territory. This ceremony is special for Manitoba, Manitobans, and the Anishinaabe and Cree nations that are here represented. As we have become accustomed to talking about treaty and treaty territory, it's important to remember what treaty means. It's about relationships. Today, a relationship agreement is being signed between 3 First Nations and the province of Manitoba. The agreement will ensure that First Nations people, using a government-to-government approach, will be directly involved in Manitoba's forestry management plans for the first time. In doing so, the First Nations will be able to protect traditional lands and treaty rights. To the signatories, the agreement represents an important first milestone for a renewed and collaborative approach to forest stewardship and the respect of treaty rights. It is being seen by all participants as a precedent-setting agreement towards reconciliation in the province of Manitoba. It is about building relationships. The government-to-government agreement will be signed this morning by 3 First Nations: Minegoziibe Anishinabe, Wuskwi Sipihk First Nation, Sapotaweyak Cree Nation, and the province of Manitoba. Allow me to introduce to you the first of 3 First Nation chiefs who will be signatories to this important agreement. Please welcome Chief Elwood Zastre of the Wuskwi Sipihk First Nation to share his remarks.
First of all, I'd like to say good morning to everybody and thank the Creator for having us all in this room, and bless each and every one of us and look after our families as we do business. My name is Chief Elwood Zastre. I'm from Wuskwi Sipihk First Nation, and I've been chief there for 10 years and been working with Sipihk for our lands. Our elders were working with us. And it's an honor for me to be here this morning to provide some introductory remarks about precedent-setting forestry management agreement between Sipihk First Nation, Minegoziibe, Sapotaweyak, and Manitoba. How did we get here? For more than a decade, we have been raising concerns about Manitoba's failure to consider the protection of our treaty rights and a fair resource sharing when making decisions in the Pacific, building trees from our ancestral land. For many years, we were shut out of our conversations, which had a direct impact on our territories. We have been unable to exercise our rights because the consent pressured our wildlife and their habitat from commercial forestry development in the region. At the same time, since 2006, Manitoba allowed Louisiana Pacific to operate in the territories without approval from the Forest Management Plan, the FMP, contrary to what is required by Manitoba-owned license process. The draft 20-year FMP produced in 2019 by Louisiana Pacific and submitted to Manitoba was reviewed by experts retained by the First Nations. Our experts found that the FMP significantly flawed, could not be relied on upon assess risks, address potential impacts, and guide decision to making about forest sustainability. The agreement that will be signed today includes acknowledgement by the parties that Louisiana Pacific drafted the FMP will be approved by Manitoba. The agreement supports the First Nations to exercise their stewardship responsibilities and ensure decisions that are made in respect to sustainability and the meaningful exercise of our rights. Over the next few years or so, we will work with Manitoba on the government base to develop the terms and conditions of the new FMP. We also immediately work together to identify interim measures to protect and exercise of treaty rights in the region. The agreement provides opportunities to us First Nations to engage in stewardship, monitoring, forestry activities in the region. It establishes an independent review panel to monitor information from Louisiana Pacific, evaluate compliances with conditions, and recommend penalties and situations in non-compliance. Lastly, and of great importance to us, Sipihk, Manitoba commits through this agreement to protect and preserve culturally significant areas as identified by the First Nations, including the Kettle Hill, identified by our elder, Buddy Brass. Buddy Brass was the elder that cared about our lands. I was very proud of that guy. He was our community for many years. And he spoke of how we have to protect our lands because the lands can't speak for themselves and the animals. So I was always proud of Buddy. He was always there for us, to help us, to guide us in a good way. The Kettle Hills area is an untouched, beautiful area which is critical to a Sipihk Nation and our First Nations as a place exercised for our rights to hunt moose, deer, bear, elk, to gather plants and berries for food, medicine, and ceremonial. The Kettle Hill provides blueberries. It's one of the best places for blueberries. We have blueberry jam day there, and it's a beautiful place. It's nice to go out there. All our members go out there and stay out there all summer and enjoy themselves. So we have to protect things like that. We are proud that after many years of advocacy, the Kettle Hills area will finally be given the protection it deserves. Buddy will be happy. So with that, I just want to thank you. I want to work with Manitoba because the future is for our children. Our children are the most important people because they're going to be looking after this land after we're gone to the spirit world. And Buddy told me the same words I'm telling you. We have to continue to work together. yet make economic development for a lot of people that could utilize our forests in a good way and to help their families. I want to thank the Premier this morning for the pipe ceremony. That I could feel it in my heart. The song was nice. Thank you very much, Premier. So with that, I just want to say, miigwech to all of you. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Miigwech, Chief Zastre, for remembering the forest management that has led us to today, and also for your touching reflections of Elder Buddy Brass from your community. Next, I would like to call upon Chief Nelson Genaille of Sapotaweyak Cree Nation to share his remarks with us this morning. Chief Genaille.
Alaskaman, Sipihk. Askamaus Bogan, Minegoziibe, Nitsigmauk, Unaswininiok, Keatis. Niganis Daisy Wataman, Daske, Josmisak News, Zapar. Naskamau Nitsigmauk, Visto, Visuiapuit. Ovistogi, Sminigasutigao, that the skin of the Manitoba Tigasutic. Niganis Daisy Wataman, Kegon, Apogesent Mandat. 150 years has come and gone for Treaty 4. Outstanding promise that we're left aside, that we're still battling. This is only one fight that's being acknowledged right now. To acknowledge the pipe by the Premier. You know, I smoked pipe with him many years ago when he was younger. It's a good thing he's matured a little bit now to understand the seat he's in on as the Premier of Manitoba. Acknowledge the ministers on their role of responsibility. Going to court is a waste of time. And I acknowledge my lawyers and our legal team for putting up a good fight, listening to us, penning the paper of what we need to do. Without them, we wouldn't be here. We'd still be spinning our circles and finding a way to move forward. Now, let's acknowledge our people back home. It's who we do it for. It is yourself, ourselves. I had a band member charged for moose hunting in our treaty traditional territory. Almost 4 years going to court. Jordan's principle didn't even apply to that factor. The court system, once again, I'll say in Manitoba, is very corrupt. The judges, the lawyers, because that's not our court system. Our court system was that pipe we used this morning. That sheds truth and reconciliation. Without that, they won't have it. It took a while for this pipe to start smoking because we need that within ourselves. Because it sees right through us. And we need to do that more often. Because it doesn't happen today. It's supposed to happen tomorrow, the next day, the day after. We don't pray the day because we're sick. We pray every day for strength, guidance, and wisdom. I had this necktie given to me in Sundance. It was best I wear of Sasquatch. You know, if you look at that Mustayapio, as a protector of forest, we are only tokens of where we come from. I'm an Innu Cree person, Cree 4. Like my ancestors, they were of leadership. So I acknowledge them. I cry with them when I pray with pipe because they come and touch me. It's good my fellow chief felt that today. But I urge them to feel that every day, not only today. So in working together, let's achieve things that we need to do. I acknowledge my fellow leadership think it was last week, I got elected as president of PBC again. I started in 2008. Pipe chose me to be president. That pipe gave me direction on what I had to do. And I urge this government to honor that pipe, to honor that truth and reconciliation, fulfill TLE. It's an outstanding legal obligation of land entitlement. Because once we have land, then we save it for our people. And once we have that land resource, we could provide for our people. In Saskatchewan, I don't have to remind you what happened in Saskatchewan, where a young Native adolescent was shot and killed, only for the judicial system to hide this person paid for by taxpayers. That's not even acknowledged anywhere. And that's what angers me at times. I come down south, it says do not trespass private property. Meanwhile, when you take all the instruments that are in place, whose land is it? It's our land. When you take all the instruments that were put in place to rob us of stolen land, it's our land. So it's good this government recognizes it. It's good that they recognize and move forward. Revenue sharing, it's one piece. But at the same time, economic development is what we want too. We know how to work, just give us the opportunity to work. So I say that in a good way, a humble way, not an angered way, because without truth and reconciliation, we're angered, we don't do it. We don't come to the table with an open heart, open mind. And I acknowledge that pipe, that it keeps us focused that way. I acknowledge my council members here and my LAD advisory board to understand what we're trying to do. And that's basically move forward, new relationship. How do we do that? Let's meet more often. Let's honor the words of the promise and treaty, because there were sacred witnesses during that time. I come a long way as a child. I'm still a child. And I hope to keep on growing. Because one thing that we tend to forget, we are all children of Creator. And we're always going to be children of Creator. There's no stature of elder, man, woman, child, because we're all children of Creator. And I still get a little mad and angered because of Mother Earth. So we have to move together to acknowledge on a certain way how to protect her, how to sustain her, how to make it work. And how we make it work is you have to listen to my people. I have to listen to my people. So in Ashkabit now, Tinun stay Pigishigan, Ismegi Maganaskabit now, Minegoziibe, Peru Taman. Nigan stay Sigawat mo Dosum Senus Magsapan. Send the Sagis Munasigistiga. Oh.
Miigwech, Chief Genaille, for sharing with us your Sundance items and sharing with us your teachings about Sabe or Sasquatch that you wear on your vest. And thanks for situating today's announcements within the other priorities that your community and other First Nations have. Next, I will introduce to you Chief Derek Nepinak of the Minegoziibe Anishinabe, otherwise known as Pine Creek First Nation. Chief Nepinak.
Bonjour, Anishinabe. Nichiaganak, Nichiogimakanak, Niben Makwan, Dishnikas Makwan told him. Which Pagan Nungum. I wanted to start by making a few acknowledgements, and I wanted to acknowledge my council who are all here today, the leadership from the three communities who made the trip to witness this historical moment. Thank you for being here. I want to acknowledge the pipe that was lifted in the Premier's office. I think, a bit of a different person than I was when I woke up this morning, because I witnessed something historical in the raising of that pipe in the Premier's office. And I noted that, for well over 100 years now, since 1870, I wonder how many times the pipe has been lifted in the Premier's office, and it has to have been a very rare event. So who I was this morning is not who I am today, and having witnessed that, I want to acknowledge the Premier for his courage and his leadership in that regard, creating space for our laws to flourish, because our laws start with the pipe. I want to acknowledge the ministers who are here, the leadership from the province of Manitoba, because the province of Manitoba has an obligation to honor the Crown and uphold the obligations of the Crown. I want to acknowledge the legal professionals, the policy people, the technicians that have done all this work to get us to this very important point in time. You've done tremendous work. I want to acknowledge the song and the drum that Ronan brought to open this ceremony in this space. Miigwech, young man, for doing that work for us today. There's a lot to be said about what we're witnessing. One of my elders once told me that if the land is sick, the people will be sick. And there's a reciprocity in relationship that we have to become more aware of as we move forward. Another of my elders told me one time that there is a new nationhood, and it's a nationhood of humanity. So a lot of these barriers that we've created politically that divide us have to fall. And I believe we're witnessing that today. It's a pleasure to be here to speak on the importance of this landmark forestry agreement. But when I say forestry, I'm really talking about relationships. And these relationships go back far, far into the past. These relationships that we think exist amongst humans also exist amongst us and the natural world, the water that flows from our territory, the trees that grow, and the abundance of the food that we've relied on. That's all part of the relationship within those lands that we know are treaty lands. We as a community are primarily historically anchored to Treaty 4. We had a number of families that comprise the original Treaty 4 families in Minegoziibe. But since then, we've also had a number of families come in from the Treaty 2 territories because of the influence of the church, and that's who we are as a people. And I want to acknowledge, the presence of the Treaty 2 group here today as well, and of course, our Grand Chief from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, Kathy Merrick. We're deeply connected to the Duck Mountains. It's our heartland. It's our hunting territory. It's where our people go to learn our language. It's where we go to sit and to hunt and to pick medicines and to understand who we are as a people. That's what we're about. And we go out there, and it's so important that these relationships are mended and fixed, because there's other people out there too. There's other interests. We have no desire to take food off the table of anybody. So we have to create an opportunity for reconciliation with those who would go and engage in the forestry industry. There's responsibility there on our part, but there's also responsibility on their part to find a common ground. And that's what this agreement is all about. It's an agreement to collaborate and move forward together in a good way. It's a milestone for us in working with Manitoba for respect of the inherent laws and responsibilities of our people. The agreement includes a provision for the establishment and support for a bilateral table which will advance discussions regarding joint decision-making, including legislative and policy reform, to enhance our ability to exercise our inherent laws and responsibilities as it relates to stewardship and forestry planning. Now, when I'm talking about legislation, I think it's very important to understand the distinction that we make as one party of the treaty, because we recognize legislation binds the hearts and the minds of those citizens of Manitoba who live here. The rule of law applies. We as Anishinaabe people, we also have our own set of laws and our own set of rules. But we recognize the value that legislation may bring in creating a new awareness for future generations to understand how to conduct themselves on the mountain when we're there doing our thing, when they're there doing their thing. Recognize that possibly recognition legislation will allow for people to understand what's expected of them out there. It's not entirely our law, but of course we're part of that process. The respect of our inherent laws and responsibilities as it relates to the forest is necessary for respectful relationships and meaningful reconciliation between Manitoba and First Nation. And to that end, I do honestly believe, and I've said, time and time again, the important role of the province in upholding treaty obligations. It's important for the restoration of balance for the well-being of all living beings in our ancestral territory. As part of this agreement, it was important for us to include protections and concrete measures for the health of animals, fish and plants, and of course the water. The agreement includes protection for moose populations in the region and our ability to hunt moose. And when I say hunt moose, I'm talking about a relationship that exists between our people and the moose population. It is a sacred relationship. It's a respectful relationship. And it's our responsibility to ensure that relationship continues on for many generations into the future, so that maybe someday the grandchildren of our grandchildren can still go out there and find the moose and bring home that fresh moose meat that we enjoy so much. We live in a very, very significant time. We live in a time of climate change. We live in a time when we recognize as Anishinaabe people that there's not many places in the world you can go today and go out onto the land and harvest the animals. This is one of the last strongholds where we hold an opportunity to do what's right. And it means creating sustainable ways of living together. It means building the relationships. We fought hard for this agreement. And I want to recognize, even going back a few years, if we go back maybe 25 years or so, there were other leaders, other chiefs, other councillors, other technicians who had less tools to work with. As certain precedents in Canadian law did not exist at the time, we had other leaders that still fought for what was right for us. I want to recognize people like our late Chief McKay. I want to recognize, the councillors that worked alongside him. I want to recognize those foresters from our community who tried to get out into the bush and participate in the business. I want to recognize people like Thomas Nepinak, my uncle, who's watching this today with a smile on his face, recognizing the years and decades of dedication he made on behalf of our family as a forester, and as someone who was willing to come to the table and treaty and negotiate, good agreements. Without the foundation of that previous generation, we wouldn't be here today, holding the line and pushing that conversation. So overall, I want to say that we're pleased by this agreement. It is a very significant first step. We're happy to see that, this has come to where it is. I want to send out, of course, a very special recognition for, a young man who contacted me almost every day throughout this process. Chief, should we do this? Chief, can I do that? Chief, can I say this? Arogitchta, Jeremy McKay. They said in the past that in time, the pen would become mightier than the sword. I want to recognize the warriors that have taken up that task, the legal team that have done the work, and of course our very own Jeremy McKay, who's Arogitchta, protecting us in all facets of the legal space. Which
Miigwech, Chief Nepinak, thanks for reflecting on this day as you planned it, but also on how it developed organically when Premier Kinew walked around his office this morning carrying a pipe with those who joined him. So thank you for your reflections. Before we invite representatives of the Crown, we're very honored to have Grand Chief Kathy Merrick join us this morning. So I want to give an opportunity for Grand Chief Merrick to address us. Grand Chief.
Good morning. Nadaskumon, epise uitap mitwak, evi Apatagan utse di sinistayna tsikatek. Evita to skemituag. Ukemaganak. Ina. Kichu kemautawi sakapit. Province kaya tamak. So good morning. My name is Kathy Merrick. I'm the Grand Chief for the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. I represent 62 First Nations. And 3 of my chiefs are here. Always very proud and very honored to be in a space with them. Very historic time for our people. But first and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge the Premier for the pipe ceremony this morning with our leadership. And that the pipe always leads the way of our people. And that we be able to do that work in a good way and in a good heart. And that we always remember that the drum also leads our way. And the heartbeat of the drum is the heartbeat of our nations. And that we always remember the sounds that echoes in the office of the legislative building in Manitoba. And it's something that has just recently happened. And I was sitting there, I was at the, when the big drum was in the gallery. It was such a beautiful time to be able to hear the big drum in the gallery, and the echoes of that drum was so heart-touching. I never thought I would see the day in my lifetime where that would happen. So I'm very grateful for Premier, for Wab Kinew, for being able to lead us in that manner. And that today is very important for First Nations here in Manitoba. And it's important for our communities and for our treaty relationship with the Crown. That agreement that will be signed today marks a turning point on how the forests in our territory will be managed. And with all the hard work that has been done for our leadership, and I just want to echo their issue is how long it took to be here today. And just to echo as well that the resources that are going to be shared and that the work that needs to be done. And that our men are very capable of doing that work in our territories. And as women, we protect the water. That is our responsibility from time immemorial, that we be able to protect the water, that we be able to look after the land, and to be able to protect Mother Earth. And so that's our responsibility as we sit here today. So it will strengthen our ability to protect our forests for our current and for future generations. Be very mindful that our young ones are going to be growing up and they're going to be standing here speaking. And hopefully that they don't have to stand here after 50 years. I hope that they stand here and be able to address the premier, to be able to address ministers that work hard to be able to hear the voices of our young ones. And hopefully at that time that we do not talk about reconciliation, because we're doing all that work within time. But reconciliation is not just reconciliation comes with money. When we talk about reconciliation with our leaders, and when we talk about reconciliation with First Nations. So it has taken a lot of work to get to this point, and there is so much more that needs to be done. We are all very much aware of our relationships with both the province and the Crown. So we look forward to working with Manitoba always on a government-to-government basis to implement this agreement and to move forward in a way that ensures our forests and our treaty rights remain protected. Segusanan ng askumun, episayak, episamamayak, minagitsipon epise, ayak, wapatam, ni kanimina na keviatis, unasnak, unaskwan. I thank you.
Thank you, Grand Chief Merrick. The chiefs that are represented here today have indicated by their comments that there's still much more work to do, especially as Chief Genaille emphasized, but I think they're hopeful that a new government-to-government relationship could be established. The other part of that relationship, of course, is the province of Manitoba to offer his comments on why signing of today's agreement is important to both the provincial government and to all of Manitobans. Please join me in welcoming the Honorable Wab Kinew, Premier of Manitoba.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to your building, the People's Building. Belongs to everybody here in Manitoba. Today's agreement is about making a living, and it's about protecting a way of life. There's a lot I want to reflect on. I want to begin by acknowledging the chiefs who are here, Chief Zastre from Wuskwi, Sipihk, Chief Genaille from Sapotaweyak, and Chief Chartrand, or Nepinak rather, from Minegoziibe, Anishinabe. I was thinking about Ronan still there. Sorry about that. I'll acknowledge you as well too for getting us started in a good way. Thank you so much. Grand Chief Merrick from the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. They've spoken very eloquently about the Indigenous perspective on the treaty relationship, as well as the importance of this agreement here today. And I want to acknowledge those things and say that this is a significant moment. It sets a new relationship, a new standard for the relationship to be pursued over the coming decades. And I want to speak specifically to the people on the shop floor at Louisiana Pacific. And I want to speak specifically to the people in the bush swinging a chainsaw, supplying the raw material that is processed in that plant. I know there's been a lot of concern and a lot of uncertainty, and I want to say this deal here today is important because it brings security to your jobs for the next quarter century. It's a 5-year agreement that we're going to work together as Crown, as First Nations leaders, to arrive at a 20-year plan for the future of the forest, for the way of life, and of course for the operation at that LP facility in Minnesota. And it's important for me to talk about this because when I visited the plant, I talked on the shop floor with the rank and file, the people who go to work in the morning and come home at the end of it with dirt under their fingernails. People work with hard hats and high-vis vests on and coveralls. When we're talking about jobs, I respect your jobs. That's my priority. And when I talk about my job as the Premier of Manitoba, it's to stand up for people like you. And there are people from Sipihk, Sapotaweyak, from Pine Creek working on the shop floor. Same last names as some of the leaders who are here today. And they're working right alongside people on the shop floor who come from Ukrainian families, French families, and English families, every different walk of life that we have in the parkland that we have across the province of Manitoba. And I want to say that this is how jobs in the resource sector are going to be built and protected going forward in Manitoba and in Canada. We're a country that is rich in natural resources, and we have a long tradition of building the economy in relation to those sectors. Going forward into the future, for the next 150 years, having job security for people who work with a chainsaw or who work on the shop floor or who work in any of the resource sectors, it's going to be involved looking at the environmental perspectives and ensuring that the Indigenous nations are on board. This is the path forward. And so our government is very honored to be joined by leadership here today to be able to move forward in a good way. Your jobs are important to me. The jobs of people across Manitoba are very important to me. And the way that we're going to protect your jobs is by understanding that for other Manitobans who have important rights and perspectives that need to be considered, that for those folks, dropping a moose is part of their way of life and how they put food on the table. And so our idea is to bring everyone together. We're one Manitoba. We have one future that we share here together. And to work these issues out in a good way is how we're going to ensure that you can keep putting food on the table and that your neighbors can keep putting food on the table as well. And of course, like I acknowledge many Métis citizens and First Nations people working on the shop floor who want to be able to exercise their treaty and Indigenous rights at the same time that they want to be able to collect a good paycheck by having a unionized job in the LP facility. So we have a path forward here that I'm feeling very positive about because it represents a turning of the page. As you've heard, history looms large in many of these conversations and in many of the deliberations that we have. But the future and what we want to be able to do together looms equally large as well. And we need to put our minds together to be able to chart a course forward that works for everybody. And so I acknowledge the leadership of Chief Nepinak when he says that they don't want to take food off anyone's table. And I also want to acknowledge that for many times in the past, people in these First Nations and in other Indigenous communities felt like they were being prevented from earning a livelihood in the way that they have since time immemorial. So today we're committed to working together to ensure that we're looking after all of that together with one eye towards the future. And so when we sign this document, we're agreeing to that 5-year process. Part of that immediate 5 years is an enhanced approach to revenue sharing, which is going to provide more immediate economic development opportunities in the way that these communities determine for themselves. At the same time, we are going to move towards a shared approach to managing the forests, the mountains, the waters, our approach to the moose population and other animals in the region. And when we balance those shared interests and the shared resource together in a good way, that's how we're going to be able to arrive at the end of this 5-year process. Maybe sooner, by the way, if we can all come to an understanding prior to that. And then we'll enter into that 20-year stage that follows. And of course, you heard Chief Zastre speak about that. And when we reflect on this relationship, I think that it's important to be to share, the insights that Chief Genaille mentioned about together, and that you heard referenced by the Grand Chief as well. When we talk about the pipe, other Manitobans might be wondering what role that has here. And I would say the pipe offers us an important understanding of what reconciliation can be. There's Anishinabe Cree in the region that I come from, Joyce White, who once told me, the pipe is two things. It's the bowl and it's the stem. But when you put them together, it becomes something more powerful than what was there before. And she said, that's what you have to make your life like. You have to make your life like that. You have to take this part of your life and that part of your life and put it together and move forward in a good way. So as I reflect on the nature of the relationship, yes, you see Crown and Indigenous coming together to chart a path forward that is going to lead to future prosperity, more stability, and continued economic development that is done with respect for a safe, clean, and healthy environment. But also, I want to say we're putting together the person with the chainsaw and the person hunting moose together and charting a path forward that is going to work for everybody. So the import of having the pipe here is one that's relevant and significant to many of us, but I believe also represents a symbolic representation of what we're undertaking here today. And so I want to give thanks to the chiefs for coming forward with an open heart and an open mind. I know that, as you've heard, there has been many, many efforts conducted over the years to try and move this arrangement. And I also want to thank all the community members, the councillors, the elders, everybody who's here today for continuing to persist on those efforts. I want to thank the folks on the shop floor of LP for indulging when I was there, and I asked for your patience. I said we would be able to come to a good understanding. I said the leadership of the Indigenous communities want to be able to move forward in a good way. And I want to say to you that we're making good on that commitment here today, and we will continue to do so. So this is about jobs, but this is also about the future of Manitoba and the future of Canada. And when we talk about jobs in the resource sector, it is going to be through working together, having collaborative approach, and being willing to share that we are going to be able to move forward in a good way. For the province of Manitoba, that is going to mean a new approach. It's going to mean sharing resources and sharing decision-making in a way that perhaps wasn't done in the past. And for the Indigenous communities involved, it's going to mean that continued openness towards sharing that has been persistent over the past 150 plus years, and even longer than that. So I'm very, very optimistic about what this says for the future of Manitoba. It says that Manitoba can be a real leader in charting forth a path around unity, around everybody being able to provide for themselves, and also for us to embrace that shared vision that we are all invested in. With that, I say miigwech Pizindawiek very much. Miigwech Pijaik Mena and the Kit. Appreciate you all for being here. And once again, appreciate the engagement with our partners in this agreement. Thank you.
Miigwech, Premier Kinew, for those words, and in particular for referencing those Indigenous people who want to be Indigenous but also need a paycheck to support their families. One of those people is my dad. He's probably watching from Pine Creek on the live stream, and he was one of those guys that rode the waves of the natural resource sector, but he also wanted to be Anishinaabe. So thank you, Premier, for referencing those important people. And finally, I'd like to invite the Honorable Jamie Moses, Minister of Economic Development, Investment, and Trade and Natural Resources, to highlight how collective management of our forests will benefit all of our communities. Minister Moses.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. I appreciate that. And thank you very much to the chiefs and the councillors and the other ministers who are here today. I really appreciate your presence here and all those gathered today to witness this historic signing of this agreement between the First Nations and the province of Manitoba. I also want to personally, on a personal level, thank Chief Nepinak, Chief Zastre, Chief Genaille for the relationship building effort that we undertook to get to this stage right here today. I personally value that. We came to this effort, this process with a spirit of openness, with a spirit of listening to each other, and we've come to an understanding of how we can work together. This agreement sets us up for success for building a path for resource sharing, for revenue sharing over the next 5 years, which is going to get us to the next 20 years of stability. And all of this hard work, at the end of the day, leads us to stability, for economic growth, and for good jobs in the region. And that's one of the main reasons why we want to do this. So people can continue to work with that assurance, with that stability now and well into the future. And while we do that work to ensure those good jobs, we also make sure that we have a sustainable resource that's going to be there for generations to come. And as we enter into the idea and the move towards shared management, co-management of those natural resources, we look forward to future opportunities to bring forward more ways to collaborate and more ways we can work on economic development within the region. Our government talks a lot about economic reconciliation. This is how we act it out. And we talk a lot about co-management and shared management. Well, this is how we live it out. And it's by these type of agreements, this sort of MOU that we're about to sign, that we set ourselves up for a path to be successful together in Manitoba. And so we're very excited about how we can work as a government-to-government relationship with our departments and all the folks leading the way and helping us through this process, because we know it's going to mean a better and brighter future for all people in the region and all people across Manitoba. Thank you very much, Chiefs. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here and honored by your presence, and that we can continue to work together in a very positive and good way. Thank you.
Miigwech, Minister Moses, for sharing your hope that your commitment to work with us as First Nations moving forward. Before we move to the signing of this precedent-setting agreement, I'd like to thank our drum carrier, Ronan Chartrand, Chief Zastre, Chief Genaille, Chief Nepinak, Grand Chief Merrick, as well as Premier Kinew and Minister Moses, and also Minister Bushy, who I saw earlier, and he's joined us this morning, for being in attendance this morning. Thank you to all the First Nations councillors and the province of Manitoba team members for being here today. While we can't, and I wish I could acknowledge everyone that is here, it is with gratitude that we acknowledge the hard work from everyone who has played a role in bringing us to today. Media, just as a matter of housekeeping, immediately following the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding, I'm going to try to get the group to pose for a group photo, and then we'll have availability for media interviews. So thank you, everyone, for attending this morning. Miigwech, and we'll move over to the signing of the MOU. Miigwech.
for economic development, but also if the forestry sector grows, if LP's operation grows, that's just the floor. We're going to continue opportunities to share the revenue beyond that.
And if it doesn't, sir, are you guaranteeing
Yes.
that LP will also have a source of revenue? Are you guaranteeing that the taxpayer will be there to preserve Louisiana Pacific's ability to take a profit from the Swan River Valley area?
The taxpayer's interest here is in having these jobs continue. 640 jobs, hundreds of them in the LP plant, hundreds of them.
Not sure you're answering my question though, sir. Are you guaranteeing the LP that ceiling or that base that the First Nations are getting?
I have the utmost respect for your experience and ability as a journalist, but I'm not sure that the basis of your question apprehends the actual situation on the ground. So we are going, LP is part of the conversation here. They are contributing money similar to what exists in other areas in the form of an impact benefit agreement. But they're not signatories to this agreement because this agreement is a nation-to-nation. In terms of LP's sustainability of operation, guaranteeing that people who are going to work there today are going to keep going to work for the next 25 years. This stability, the strength of this working relationship, the ability to ensure that there is a forest there with a generations-long timeline, that's how we guarantee the sustainability of LP's operation.
Can you explain what logging changes are happening? What are the differences between, over the last decade?
I can give you a specific example that I think will change relatively relatively early on into this process. One of the concerns that we've heard addressed both at the table and also in our conversations with the community. Somebody goes hunting down a logging road and the logging truck. Too many times in the past, the hunter has been turned away or turned back. A similar concern is that when a provincial conservation officer encounters somebody in the bush with something who's in one of these logging areas, that they're turned away, or perhaps even a more complicated scenario than that. What I can say is that as part of this conversation, we are going to be saying to COs in this area, you have to respect the right to hold. So absolutely, the forest management, the sustainability, resource, that's going to be important to consider. But there are things that we can do, like in the next few months, change the nature of the relationship on the ground so that it's less adversarial and it's more based on respect. And that means government changing practices. Where how conservation officers are doing their important work. Again, folks have an important role to play. But we are going to change the conventional practice in this area because it supports the bigger picture of sustainability and economy in the Swan Valley.
Chief Zastre has talked about the importance of kettles and how sacred this area is. And are you prepared as a government in partnership with governments to enact legislation to preserve that area? I think that's part of people there need long-term preservation enacted to essentially say, no to logging, no to forestry in that area, or at least that there would be a veto of ability of
We're open to the conversation, and I expect the conversation's already started. That's some of those discussions already. As you heard Chief Genaille say, there are other agencies that they want to follow, whether it's with PLE or other processes like that. What I would say so too for the province of Manitoba, we have other priorities that we're pursuing, such as the 30 by 30 commitment, and we're working with Indigenous communities on Indigenous protected areas. Signing that took place here today, to me, represents us committing to work together in a good way. We've worked together over the past few months to arrive at this point, and now as a lady relationship, it's going to require that commitment to continue showing up to be able to make sure that we can arrive at what everybody wants, and share this.
Premier, my last question, I apologize, my last question on this goes to the bigger picture. Because as I see this, this can also address some of the larger issues when it comes to, frankly, when it comes to hydro. Is this the basis of what a Kinew administration wants to see as far as reconciliation is concerned with other First Nations in Manitoba, government to government, on the bigger issues, the outstanding issues when it comes to hunting, and certainly when it comes to hydro?
It's not about what I want, it's never about what I want. It's about what is in the best interest of the people of Manitoba, and by extension, Canadian. And it is clear where we are in this country with respect to reconciliation, with respect to Supreme Court case law, that for resource jobs to be created, for resource jobs to be protected, you have to have good relationships like the one body in this agreement here today. So the specific language of this agreement has been arrived at with the leadership of these First Nations to reflect the latest in this part of the province. Specific language in this agreement perhaps will not be a template that we then will apply in resource areas, but the broader principle that we need to look at environment and this nation and talk about developing communities in Manitoba, that is the pathway. And so our remarks today very intentional, and I did mean not just as a way to valley or the plant and bonus. I mean this province-wide. The future of resource jobs that are in the economy for people on the table for all blue collar opportunities to continue to persist. It is when we all work together in relationships like this one.
Premier, please, for our francophone audience,
Yes.
quels sont les avantages de cette entente qui vient d'être signée?
Et cette entente, c'est une opportunité de surmonter les défis du passé, mais en même temps de créer des opportunités économiques pour les Premières Nations, pour tous les groupes de pays mondiaux. Il y avait un temps, et nous avons bien entendu les défis qui étaient survécus pour les Premières Nations. Et puis ce temps a passé. Maintenant, bonne chance, opportunité de la province. Notre province pourrait être un vrai leader de dire, regarde, si tu veux avancer des projets comme celui-ci, il faut respectueux avec les autochtones et regarder avec les défis. Et puis, je pense que cette entente, c'est une première étape, c'est une étape très importante pour créer ces emplois dans cette région de la province. Mais en même temps, c'est une étape symbolique que j'espère va donner de l'espoir à tous les Minegoziibe pour voir qu'on pourrait réussir à avancer le projet de réconciliation.
Comment vous allez faire pour vous assurer que l'entreprise forestière respecte cette entente?
Pour cette entente, c'est un avantage. Pour une milieu sécuritaire depuis longtemps. En parlant avec ceux qui travaillent là-bas dans Manitoba, il y avait toujours inquiétude.
Frustration.
Juste une inquiétude. Pour nous, maintenant, on pourrait dire, regarde, nous avons pris une étape très forte pour donner de clarté et de sécurité pour vos enfants.
If you could provide any details on the enhanced refuge area that you talked about, and also, this is a government-to-government MOU, but obviously, again, Pacific's participation in the spirit of it would be important. Like, is there any changes, or any structure established, that wasn't, that didn't exist before in terms of, communication, collaboration, about that?
Yeah, how much do you want me to nerd out?
Yeah.
this right tonight, but I can go into quite a bit of detail. What I would say perhaps is that if you're somebody who's not working on and been in bonus, and there's been this anxiety bubbling over the past number of years, process, this agreement is providing security. And the way that it does that for the person who's going to work in the land, or the person who's going to work in the bush, is by saying, that's the stage of litigating. And I mean litigating, obviously, it's not just the corporate sense of litigating. What are we going to do about Indigenous rights in the past? Indigenous people have rights that are clearly defined. Hunting rights are among the most defined of those rights. And so in order to be able to provide a good all Manitobans, let's get on to the business of building a respectful relationship. The idea of trying to argue the details of whether we should be at the table, I think, is distracting us from the real project of how do we move forward in a good way together. So this agreement represents that. The financial terms, what we're talking about is sharing the selfish streets in the region. The floor that we're providing shares that there's going to be predictability over the long term stations, while still preserving the opportunity. We see a dramatic increase in activity in the region. If LP all of a sudden starts to see another boom, then they're going to continue to benefit. So we establish a floor, which guarantees a minimum of the payments that we make exist. Then anything above the floor, which things in terms of the economy, environmental, and Indigenous priorities, then again, everything above the floor will continue to be shared with communities. LP is making a financial contribution to this. In conversation, I think they very much welcome the stability and security that this new relationship provides. And I would encourage you to reach out to them, and they can talk to you about whatever details that they want to share in terms of their perspective. But to bring it back to the broader conversation, what I would say is, from the Crown's perspective, the honor of the Crown is always at stake in these conflicts. Look around at the room that we're standing in here. This is a Crown sort of conversation. Typically, the Crown, in this case meaning the province, can delegate that to businesses. And we see that happen by impact benefit agreements with mining companies, as one example. But where that is delegated, ultimately, it always falls back to the Crown. The things are being done in a good way, in the right way. After engagement and talking to the leadership of these First Nations, we decided to move forward with the direct nation to nation agreement in this case. So the proponent, which in this case is LP, is going to continue to have a role. But who's at the table in terms of this MOU and that 5-year process to get us to that subsequent 20-year approval? It's these 3 First Nations, and it's the province of Manitoba.
It's taken many years for there to be a satisfactory long-term management plan. Are you confident that they'll meet the deadline in 5 years?
I mean, we've worked together so far. I'm optimistic we're going to do some good things. Oh, sorry, we had a question on Zoom.
One question for follow-up. I think French in particular questions today. You all already answered most of the questions that I had. That's my first question. Chief Zastre. That's okay. You both acknowledged that this is a lot in the making, and at the very least, a decade was noted by you, Chief Zastre. Can you tell us a little bit about, what makes this something that took this long for you? How is this something, in terms of working with this person, and how is that different than when you give us the context about how now working with the province of Manitoba is at the moment compared to how the city was experiencing before?
Thank you, Fred. It was ways back when I was a young kid, 16, 17 years old, when the province of Manitoba used to come and take away our fish, our meat, whatever they could take away. We had the right to hunt, we had the right to fish, and they would take it away on us. And finally, one guy got them in court and beat them. And since then, they left us alone. But they're still not up to par yet that how that relationship with us. It's still hard with the government, but we came a long ways today. And I noticed in the last few months, we had a few drug guys charged a couple of years back, but the charges are dropped. And it's getting better with this government, a lot better. I can see it myself. And I'm going to work with them in a good way with my people, our First Nations, because we know how to sustain our culture, our animals, and look after them. I want them to control over that, but the government that controls us on everything. A lot of our chiefs and our chiefs weren't as educated as we are today, and we understand what's going on. Like I said, everybody has to have. You got children, you got babies, you got everything. If we could work with the Manitoba government to harvest the wood the right way, protect our animals, look after the environment, that would be a problem. And we've been doing that for, I don't know how long we've been in negotiations. Our land managers, our legal team. It came a long ways. It came a long ways. I'm so proud of that. For my people, we're starting to understand. Already Manitoba is making tax resources. How would I say it? They have to respect our rights. They have to have a training to know how we live, how we hunt, and all that. You get new officers that come out of university, and got a gun on their side, take their house. That's not like that. I'll respect them, but they respect me. That's the way it goes. And I'm happy for that. Because I'm not worried about myself, I'm worried about my little children and my grandchildren in the future. They'll hunt these moose. They still have forest out there where we can feed their berries, gather them. That's what we're going to look forward to. And New Year and his staff are great people who do that for us. I know that. I know that for a fact. Because just in the last, I've been sheep for 10 years. Last work, we got in, we're talking. I never sat down with the government of Manitoba and talked with them before. I never walked into his office, in your office, and smoked a pipe. The pipe means a lot to us. You can feel that. And when he was singing this song this morning, I could feel it in my heart. So, you know, we got to work together. The other Anishinabe, LP, they got kids, they got family, just like us. They got to respect the way we conduct, help them conduct it, and work together. Right enough?
The idea of working with this government now is a long time in making, but now we're trying to do momentum on it. How is yours with this government and why now? Or is it even
working with this, well, historically, we know our relationship with the provincial government prior to this new government, and it was not a good relationship. And so with that government, premier who is First Nations. And it has created a journey moving forward to be able to come to the legislature, to be able to participate in pipe ceremonies, to be able to sit at the drum in the gallery and to be able to listen to the song, the pipe songs. And I think it's, I didn't think that I would see that because our people our elders did not come around the legislature back in the day. And so this is a new journey for us as leaders, and it's a new journey for the provincial government here today that we are having and that today here with the signing of everyone understanding that our leaders are going to be at the table, and they have been, and we just need to be able to continue that relationship that we have with the government of Manitoba.
Question for you.
That's okay. Really welcome.
Well, we are going to have a good working relationship with our government. Allow us to move forward on important priorities like this that we're going to work with the players at the federal level during our first months in office. The Manitobans didn't send us here to pick fights. They sent us here to get things done. So that's what we're supposed to do. That's when that's in the best interest of Manitoba, with Indigenous government, and that's how we're going to be able to move the ball forward, like jobs and the environment, and making sure that we have a good life. So our team recently scored a very, very significant win in the Tuxedo by-election here in Manitoba. I thank the people of Tuxedo for our candidate, our Algonquin, for their support back in this room within the next few weeks for sure. And we'll just say that what I've seen is that when you listen to the people, when you work hard to ensure that you're responding to their needs, when you work with an attitude of humility and hard work, as part of Compton did in Tuxedo, then people are going to continue to work with you.
For the 5 years, right, why are you working for the 2 years? This is extended for 5 years. The chiefs for the license.
Well, you'll see the OIC right away. That's important. I think that from the perspective of the OPI operation, from the perspective of subcontractors who are working in the bush, their activities are going. The plant is going to continue making their product, and the people are going to continue going to work and earning a paycheck. What we're setting up in consideration are what are the changes we can implement right away in terms of the respective treaty rights to hunt, treaty rights to engage in things like that. We'll make those small changes, which are most likely in other areas, such as what's the practice around conservation officers' orientation in this part of the province. There will be policy changes. I think it's probably going to be outside of the forestry operation in particular. But the hope is, over this 5-year period, we are going to articulate our vision. Everyone agrees is a strong path forward
Yes, can you explain what, like in the long-term forestry management plan, what, are there any logging, changes to the logging practices that you're hoping to see? In the long-term forestry management plan, the 20-year plan, what changes to the logging practices are you hoping to see?
The 20-year plan, us as First Nations people are going to look after our forests in a better way. And work with contractors, work with LP and whoever else is catching all the other entities that are elders are knowledgeable of what's in this certain area, what's in this area, and this is a start today by signing the MOU that we're going to work with them, and they have to understand that they have to work with us also. If they don't follow our procedure, what's happening, or say is and they still go in there and it's not good business. And it can't happen. Just for one example, at one time, I was out there and I was invited to all these meetings to tell them where my salt was. And I showed them all, I gave them everything they wanted. When I went back to the offer 15 years around the salt lake, when I went back there was 4 trees standing there. So they didn't honor anything. But now we have foresters of our own, like our names, and now we start working together with people that we signed today.
My only follow-up on that was, having been in that area and seen a lot of what is really clear cutting, maybe 1 or 2 trees, does that practice end, or does it just depend on what part of the ducks we're talking about in the end? Because a lot of environmentalists look at that and they go, that's not really good stewardship. So I think there's an education around this as well that has to happen. A lot of people like me that will go in there and just see, all these trees taken away and kind of wonder, well, how is this stewardship?
Okay, so like I said, everybody has to have a living. If you do the right way and a good way, it'll work. Like you get these, we see all these clear cuts cutting up in the mountains. You can see them from far back in the lakes. But you gotta remember, these fucking clear cuts are all planted. Lots of them are planted, lots of them are growing back by themselves. Nature brings them back. Which is fresh growth for the moose, deer, and the animal coming back. But us as leaders will make sure that certain areas will be certain areas will be cut how much we have to cut and all that. And we'll look at it. That's what we gotta do. This world is the environment's crazy right now. Everything. Not only the forest, but everything's going. And we as landowners of this third island, we look after it. We gotta really work hard with the governments, the federal government, the provincial government, everybody.
I know there was a couple of media representatives that wanted to ask some questions of your chief. Speak with the chief.
I just want to throw out a supplement to what's been said on some of the questions that were asked earlier, because I think it's important that I speak on the matter of resource equity. For a very long time, various country governments in Manitoba have been in existence of what we refer to as resource equity. And that means that there's a sharing responsibility within the treaty that hasn't been observed for such a long time. Many of us look at, for example, natural resource transfer agreements in 1930. Fraud perpetuated a lot of people. And the people I'm talking about, us, is the ones from the land. The transfer of those responsibilities to the resources of the province and the ground completely kept us out of the conversation. Government, until the new government, and And in mining, we talk about access to the mineral properties there as well. So that's where this transition is at. We have a government and a premier who's aware of natural law. We have a premier who understands and how there's what the crown's doing. And I think that's important for everybody. So that's part of what the reconciliation process is recognizing that there is a resource equity that has to prove the benefit of it. Because we've been kept impoverished in this relationship. And in terms of what this MOU represents going forward when it comes to forestry management, we have an opportunity, I believe, we will stand in terms of identifying what it means to figure out how best to create an operational plans and management practices in our forests. And I believe it's in a place to become world leaders in this space. And we can't do it without the agreements and without the resources. So when we talk about enhanced resources, we're going to be using resources to hire the best scientists to keep people on the line. This year, we're a technician in our community, we're technicians like Jerry McKay, as well as people who have the capacity to come forward, participate, contribute in a good way, come up with the best possible solutions for future generations. That's and then if it takes for 20 years for to agree on best practices and solutions, that's great because we're optimistic of good potential to happen. So there's no questions. Thank you for your attention.
Mayor, Chiefs, just one thing that's very bothersome. There's a picture of King George. 2013, I went to Ottawa. Celebration, they said. The treaties were signed. This is all Indian land, he said. Professor spoke, minister spoke, I spoke too. It's all fairy tale treaties. It's still a fairy tale. So I'm challenging Canada, Manitoba, fulfill TLE. Give us our land back. It's an outstanding promise of land entitlement. Legal. It's gone to court. I've gone to court more than 2 times. I took Manitoba government to court, Manitoba High Court court. Fulfill TLE. I'm still waiting. I took Canada to court. We're negotiating. So the Prime Minister needs to work with the Premier of the TLE. It was signed May 29, 1997. That agreement said 5 years forest harvesting. We'll do our TLE. You want to do that? But I'm not on the square. That's where I have to be respectful of the fight. We want to be part of the economy. The only way we're part of the economy is we need the land. We need that because when my ancestors signed this whole fight, they were sharing the land, death of a plow. Farming, that's all. Just farming, not forestry, not mining, not gas cars, not stores, just farming. So who's basically the hoax in the house? It's Canada, it's Manitoba. And that's the resource to that. It's still not legally binding, but it's entrenched in the Canadian Constitution. I'm going to go to UN, Geneva, Switzerland. In 2 weeks' time. And I want to speak about what's happening with our people. They're going to know the truth, what's happening with our people. I'm up with this 5-year MOU. But what about that next? Not even halfway done. 565 acres converted on 1.1 million acres of land. Not even done. This was signed 150 years ago. I had a talk with farmers in Swan River. Tim Hortons. I was ordering coffee. I heard him say those damn Indians are making a ruckus again. I like to protest. They're on our land, protesting. You know, finally I got fed up and turned around. You know, I'm chief. See, it's your land. Yeah. So what do you do with your land? Pay taxes? Yeah. What do you pay taxes to? Not the province. It's a rural municipality. Don't pay your taxes. See, it's your land. Taxes. Why? Tax arrears. Province will take it back. So when you talk about First Nations land, I go through documents that are instrumental on taking our land away from us. The meaning of that, order council, provincial, federal. If I select a piece of property, crown land, it's promised in treaties, it's all our land. Convert it, get it surveyed, remove the instruments that are in place, provincial, federal, even reference the main land act. It goes to land that never was. Whereas the farmer, do all that. Whose land is it? Do I pay taxes on his land? No, you don't. Why not? Just see it. Who's the rightful landowner? So the three farmers look at each other. And I have to say no more. So I called you. I'll give my business cards. Because I could talk on forever and ever. And ask me anything you want to ask. 2008, I got elected as president for TLC. 1999, I got elected as a councilor. 25 years. It's like 3 years short half of my life working for my people. Maybe I have 25 or 4 years left. I hope so. Because I look after myself. And that's the only thing that was told to me by my people. How do you expect to look after yourself and look after your people? You don't have to way you look at yourself in the mirror. So every morning I look at myself in the mirror. What am I going to do today? That's my first question. And I raise my pipe. This is what I'm doing. Because that's my witness. So that's all. No questions, please.
Okay, on that note, media, chiefs, councilors, friends, thank you for joining us.